One of the biggest stories of Miami's incredible run to the finals is, you know it, their undrafted guys. I'm sure you've heard of them being mentioned a few times here and there, and, well, scratch that. You probably hear it at least 3 times in every playoff game involving the Miami Heat. And if you haven't seen them until the finals, ESPN did us all a favor by literally displaying a massive animation of the Heat's 7 undrafted players, which also happened to block the view of the game as it was going on. Way to go, ESPN. Anyway, how's it going, folks? My name's Andy, and in this video, I want to take a look at these undrafted guys. During the regular season, according to NBA.com, 33.8% of Miami's points were scored by undrafted players, which was first in the league among all teams. And throughout the playoffs, that has increased even further. As of this video, the Heat's undrafted players account for 969 out of the team's total 2,214 points scored, which is 43.7%. So let's take a look at all 7 of them and how they found their way to Miami. Omer Yurtseven. While the Heat do have 7 undrafted players, when it comes to on-court production, only 5 of them have gotten significant impact minutes. Yurtseven, a young player from Turkey, has been warming the bench for most of the last 2 seasons. But he's actually been in the league for quite a while. Back in 2017, at 17 years old, he became the youngest player to play in a preseason game. Since then, he played overseas for a bit, played in some summer leagues and G League teams, and the Heat noticed him and liked his potential. This dude is a burly 7-foot, 270-pound center, with solid footwork and a wide array of skills near the basket. While he doesn't get much playing time now, he's still young, and never underestimate the Heat's player development. A year or 2 years from now, he could all of a sudden become a good player and a solid piece of the rotation. You never know. Udonis Haslem. Haslem hasn't scored in the playoffs at all, and basically for the last 6 or 7 seasons, he's been on the roster but sparingly played, as he's basically a mentor and assistant coach now. Haslem is the OG, and we all know his impact goes way beyond the court. Spo once said, "I love having him in our locker room. I love having him lead and mentor every single day. I think his genius is the fact that he's developing mentors around him, the next round of mentors. The guys who will really be caretakers for this culture and really help bring along other guys." When it comes to Heat culture and the identity this team has established over the years, it starts with Udonis. How he got there was an interesting story. He's been a Miami guy all the way, born and raised, but he went undrafted in the 2002 draft, mainly due to his lack of size as a power forward. But even as a young lad, right when he walked into training camp, he was competing for a spot on the Heat roster. Pat Riley noticed him immediately, and he saw a kid with an incredible amount of grit and perseverance. Riley overlooked his offensive shortcomings and lack of size, and liked him for his attitude. He's the perfect example of a player who embodies the spirit of this franchise. He's exactly what Riley was looking for, and the rest is history. Haywood Highsmith. The first time I noticed Haywood Highsmith playing in a game, my first reaction was, this dude's name is like a randomly generated player on 2K. The dude attended Wheeling University, which I never heard of, but apparently it's a private Catholic school in West Virginia, and he became the first player from Wheeling University to ever play in the NBA. Now, Highsmith has been in the league for a few years, but this is his first season getting meaningful minutes. He's one of those 10-day contract guys that the Heat were testing out, and after 2 10-day contracts, he signed permanently with the team on a 3-year deal. Even though he hasn't played too much in the playoffs, he's made an impact whenever he does play. In particular, his defense stands out. But it wasn't just the playoffs where he broke out though. Earlier this season in January, in a marquee matchup against the Boston Celtics, Highsmith played 30 minutes and scored 15 points en route to a Heat victory. But what stood out was his hustle and tenacity. Spo praised him and said, quote, "He was all over the place, picking up 3/4 court and settling back into the zone. He played so well you couldn't take him out of the game. Those are the kind of things you want from a head coaching standpoint. Make us play you, because you're playing so hard and you're making so many things happen. It's not just the 4 threes. That has nothing to do with it. He could have not scored a single point in this game and he would have had his fingerprints all over this win." I think that's the thing with the Miami Heat. They don't just look for talent, they look for guys who embrace their culture, and Highsmith is a perfect fit. Max Druce. After going 0 for 10 in Game 1 of the finals, Druce bounced back immediately in Game 2 by hitting 4 threes in the first quarter. Oh, you know, just from watching him, he exudes confidence. Like what Jimmy Butler said, it doesn't matter if you miss 10 in a row, Butler is going to get him the ball so he can keep shooting. He started off on a two-way contract with the Heat, but they loved his work ethic and leadership. You can tell when he's mic'd up, he's constantly telling players where to go and who to cover. The leadership and confidence has been a huge part of Druce's personality from a young age. He went to DePaul and he was the man on the team. Even if his shot isn't falling, he's never going to let that affect him mentally. Even when outsized at 6'5", Druce plays bigger than he actually is, always taking the task of guarding bigger players. And even if he is outmatched, he's never gonna be outworked. Gabe, Vincent, and Caleb Martin. I put Vincent and Martin together because I feel like for both of them, this postseason has been their coming out party. Hardly anyone knew who they were prior to the season, but now everyone does. Martin exploded against the Celtics, averaging over 19 points a game, and throughout the playoffs, his scoring efficiency has been insane. If you look at how he scored in that Boston series, you could tell he was a big fan of Kobe growing up. Some of the stuff he did, there's no business he should be hitting these shots consistently, but he did. Before Miami, Martin played in Charlotte for a few seasons with his twin brother, but he was never known to be a great shooter. It was in Miami where he relentlessly worked on his shooting because his coaches told him if he wants minutes on the team, he needs to shoot better. Now, I feel like every time he shoots that elbow three, it goes in. As for Vincent, prior to coming to Miami, he played for the Kings G League team, where he put up over 23 points a game. But what stood out was his shooting and his aggression. The Heat picked him up a few years ago, and even though he didn't get many minutes behind Goran Dragic, but he was very observant and closely studied his game while he was there, especially when they were in the bubble and didn't have anywhere else to go. This is what he said back in 2020. "I'm still learning from Goran, just in terms of his game, his pace, and the way he controls the floor and communicates with guys, the way he gets to the basket and finishes at his size. Goran has a lot to his game, it's a little bit different, he's really efficient. I've been learning a lot from Goran and I'm continuing to learn. I love being around him." The thing is, for most of the regular season, Vincent was very streaky. I mean, he still is, but in the games where he goes off, he really goes off. Vincent and Martin are both shooting an absurd percentage from three, and I think in general, the Heat do a great job of instilling confidence in their guys. You can tell by the way they play like they believe they're as good as any other player on the court. Both of them were project players, and the Heat developed them in-house, so it's always satisfying to see these type of guys succeed. Duncan Robinson. Speaking of project players, when Duncan Robinson signed that 5-year, $90 million deal a couple years back, it was the most money an undrafted player had ever signed for. He got that contract based off his insane 2020 and 2021 seasons. He was shooting an absurd percentage from three on over 8 attempts per game. Even though his minutes decreased over the years and his shot fell off a little bit, he's still Duncan Robinson. He still low-key expanded his offensive game, as you can tell by the way he moves off the ball. He's much more than just a catch-and-shoot player. The thing is, Robinson didn't come out of nowhere either. He played for Michigan and was recognized among the Big Ten ranks. Even back in college, though, he was almost solely a spot-up shooter. A lot of his perceived weaknesses were reasonable. He didn't have much of a game outside of that. But over the years, even after having a horrible regular season, he continues to expand his game. And now he's a major reason the Heat made it this far. You gotta give credit to Spo and the entire coaching staff too. They're running plays for him and putting him in the best situations to succeed, and maximizing his talent. He can't do that without having the full support of his team, and Robinson does. Anyway, those were the Heat's undrafted players. Even deep into the playoffs, they still go 10 players deep into their rotation, while most other teams shorten to like a 7 or 8 man lineup. They've outscored their opponents by a total of 90 points in the fourth quarter across all of their games. And I think having a deep bench contributes to this, because they got fresh legs coming into the fourth quarter. With all the talk about Jimmy Butler, I think by now it's been a total team effort from Miami. Thank you all so much for watching. I hope y'all enjoyed the video, and of course, as always, I'll see you next time. Peace.